Okay, looks like we're live. Hi everyone, welcome. My name's Jade and this is my channel Bedtime Bookworm, where I usually talk about the books that I like to read. I am very excited to be hosting one of the CoNZealand panels, CoNZealand Fringe panels. This one is about the best media and books from 2020 so far. So I'm going to hand it over to Alasdair, who is going to be moderating this panel. So I'm going to pop off screen, but I'll be helping out in the comment section too. So I will be here. All right, here you go, Alasdair.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Best of the Worst Year. Scientists working earlier today did finally confirm that 2020 is, in fact, provably the worst. However, that we have good news because this terrible dog's ass crack of a year has actually so far generated some remarkably good media. And I and my intrepid team of action scientists are here to delve deep into this and bring out some good stuff for you. But before we go any further, two things. Firstly, this is a CoNZealand Fringe program. We are not affiliated with CoNZealand. We're simply happening around them in UK and European-friendly time zones.
Still very...
Oh, are we all right? Okay, good. Secondly, I'm going to hand over to my panelists now to introduce themselves, starting with Sean.
Hi, I am Sean, and I am a contributor for the Hugo-nominated fanzine Nerds of a Feather, as well as a book reviewer for Faya Literary Magazine. And I am very excited to talk about good books because it's one little light in this dark, dark year.
Donald.
Okay. My name is Oghenechovwe Ekpeki. I'm a Nigerian speculative fiction writer and editor. And I write fantasy, sci-fi, and I talk about books.
Excellent. Joanne?
Hi, my name is Joanne Hall. I'm a fantasy writer, mainly acquisitions editor for Crystal Ink, which is a small press based in Oxford, and a fan of many things.
Thank you. And finally, RSA.
Hi, I'm actually Rhonda. You can call me Rhonda. I'm a speculative fiction author from Trinidad and Tobago, which is in the Caribbean, for those who don't know, home of the Steel Band, Calypso, Limbo, and the best carnival in the world. I have been writing science fiction and fantasy since I was a small child, and I've been lucky enough to publish a novel and some stories, and hoping to keep going in this wonderful community.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us here today. And what I really wanted to start in with is really a nice, easy question. What is one piece of media that you've encountered in 2020 so far that has been balm for the horrified soul that this year is? Something that's just made you feel good? And this is open. Anyone jump in.
I've really I've gone back to kind of open world gaming, and that's been really nice because I felt that this year has been a whatever this year has been, but everything has felt very out of control. So to go back to something like Skyrim or Breath of the Wild, where I can just build my own thing and be in control of the world and build little houses. I think a lot of people are playing Animal Crossing because of this, but the same thing, that you've actually got an element of control over some aspect of the world while everything around you.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. Who's next?
I'll go back to books, and I really enjoyed The House of the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, which isn't usually my thing because I'm not usually into feel-good, happy books, but my cold heart is in desperate need of some sustenance, and I feel like that book is probably the best balm right now to get you through the world, because it's like so optimistic, so friendly, so breezy. It's really something.
What was the title?
The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's a Torrid book. It came out a few months ago.
Fantastic. Who's next?
Well, I have definitely been enjoying my Netflix subscription, thank God. And and I have to say that short fiction has also been a balm for me this year. I really loved Airbody by Sabeem Siddiqui that was in Clarksville earlier this year. It was just really, it's not like it was the happiest story in the world, but it was so beautiful. And it's such a concept, the idea of using people's bodies as one-stop hotels, because that's what it was. Like basically, people's bodies were where people would sign in like a hotel,
Oh, that
know,
sounds cool.
to experience things. Exactly, to experience things in other countries. Like you would sign up to let someone live in your body for a short while, and it was so touching and unusual. And I also have to say that I have really enjoyed. I don't know if it's been out this year. I'm sure it's been out a while actually, but I only discovered it this year thanks to my sister. Way of the House Husband, which is this Japanese manga about basically a Yakuza guy who becomes a house husband, and it's hilarious.
Danny from Fire Magazine and the just finished excellent run on the James Bond comic was talking about the TV version of that has just been announced today.
Oh, that is so awesome. I was like, the whole time I was reading it, I just kept thinking, why has no one ever made this into a movie or a TV series? Like, I would pay money to see this really hot, gentle guy, like, tattooed up the yin yang and carrying guns, taking care of his wife.
Brilliant. Donald?
Okay, well, I sort of discovered audiobooks earlier this year because I was doing a review of stories I read last year, African speculative fiction stories. And there were quite a number of them, like close to 100. So I had this thing where I needed to read a bunch of stories in very limited time because I had a lot of things doing. So, and I decided to try audiobooks because a number of sites had the audio versions of their stories, Strange Horizons, The Dark, the Escape Artists, line of magazines, podcasts, Podcastle, Escape Pod. So, and I discovered that it was a really easy way to consume stories, You didn't have to focus, you didn't have to concentrate. You could even have your attention divided between something else. So, and it's sort of been my favorite way of consuming stories, since then. But unfortunately, not all stories can be gotten in audio. So yeah, that's the setback. But if I wanted to talk about the story I really liked this year, well, I wouldn't say liked exactly. I would say more like impacted me. It's a story in the Dominion anthology, which is being edited by myself and my co-editors the other night. It's a horror story. It was written by Muzo Ono. It's titled The Unclaimed. Now, the story is about a Nigerian woman in the 1960s. It's in a heavily patriarchal society where it's demanded that she have a male child, and she eventually resorts to diabolical means to get the child, and everything ends up really horribly. Now, the thing about the story is it's really powerful. In fact, I could say it's one of the strongest stories I've ever read. While I was reading the story, I felt sick. Like I don't mean I wasn't feeling I don't mean I threw up or like I literally felt sick. I had malaria, I had to treat myself, and then when I recovered, I completed the story. So yeah, that's
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm really glad that we've been getting some comments through as well. Your point about audiobooks and podcasts, especially, that there's almost that kind of background element to it. As you say, it's something that you can focus on and consume media and at the same time be doing something else. And it's interesting to me that a lot of this year so far seems to have been defined by people changing how they interact with and how they control fiction. I have I've seen an awful lot of people talk about how they have trouble concentrating on things. And your point about podcasts and short fiction kind of speaks to that it's almost become one of those media which fits the level of attention and the level of relative calm people have, which I was wondering if people could maybe talk about that. Is short fiction something which everybody has picked up on? And also, is horror something which people find themselves interacting with more this year?
Although... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, fine.
Okay, yeah. I've been interacting with a lot of short fiction. Like, I've been trying to read everything in Lightspeed Magazine and Strange Horizons. And it's definitely become more easier. It's been like my preferred literary medium, particularly because it's so easy to concentrate on and doesn't require a long expanse of concentration. And as for horror, I actually have been going into that a lot more. And I think it's because it makes my life seem better by comparison, by watching like all these people go through the most harrowing activities. I can just look at my life and be like, oh yeah, my life is like a 3 out of 10, but their life is a 1 out of 10, so it could be worse.
I love that you have a very specific score.
It has to be specific, exactly 3.
No points for style.
No. My life isn't very stylish anyway. So.
I've been reading more novellas. I think I don't usually read short fiction a lot, but I've read I read How This Is How You Lose the Time War, and I read Orm Shadow by Priya Sharma. And just a lot more sort of very quick short fiction, a lot of middle grade YA stuff, just stuff that doesn't seem like a big daunting task. And I think what Donald said about podcasts is bang on, because it's so hard to concentrate when there's so much going on, that I'm still finding I can only manage to read in little chunks. So I can read a novella in a couple of sittings, and it doesn't feel quite as intimidating as reading something huge.
Exactly. Donald, you had a follow-on point, I think.
Okay, yeah, I was, I don't know, I think it's sort of maybe a lesson I sort of got from the Unclaimed. The story is really strong, and a bunch of reviews have come out for the anthology, and all the reviewers seem to agree that it's a rather strong story. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lesson there, because the story happens to be a reprint. So it's a bit unusual, It's not the kind of story that would easily get published. Let me put it like that. But despite it being unusual and despite its rather strong nature, there's been a lot of people that could vibe with it or see the need for it. So I feel like we should give more room for usual stories, because there's a place for every story, as they say, or there's someone who is interested in every story. So yeah.
I think that, I think that's a really good point, and I think that kind of ties into the larger narrative I'm seeing a lot of people interact with this year, which is everything is awful and horribly on fire. Let's try something completely different. Rhonda, what do you think?
I agree with that. I was just thinking, of course, one size never fits all. And although I think many people, definitely myself, are having issues concentrating. So yes, short fiction has become like a sort of easy way to get into something and get back out, and definitely podcasts as well. I was just thinking about the fact that, sometimes the stories that captivate me or that impact me or that I really am still thinking about are not necessarily the happiest stories. But even in this time, I think there's a lot of value in that the fact that we can discuss hard things and look at difficult questions in our fiction, and that there is still an audience for that. It must feel sometimes like if you're addressing dark topics or difficult topics, that this is not the time and that we all want happy light things, you know. But I do believe that there's so much value in not backing away from the hard stuff. And I have definitely enjoyed some fiction that hasn't been exactly what you would call joy. You know, Case and Canada's Queen of the Conquered is really hard hitting, and look at post-colonial and colonial oppression. And it's really impressive for not wanting to look away from the hard fact that colonialism damages everyone. It's not just about the people who colonize you. It's also about what it does to the people who are colonized and how they see themselves forever after, you know? So this is in this difficult time when we're dealing with the fallout from a lot of these horrible systems that we've imposed across the globe. There are some people like myself who are going to be okay with talking about that in fiction and maybe trying to come up with ways to ease ourselves into the problems and possibly the solutions.
So that's a really good point. There's something which I kind of wanted to pull out from that and put to everybody, which is fiction, in my experience, and it's purely my experience, fiction going through at any given time. Obviously, whether that in those various forms, as pointed out, seen a shift away from fiction as comfort and more fiction as this is the tool that fits my hand. This is the way that I have to interact with people as much as possible, right? And or rather, how I can interact with the world. We also have a recommendation in the comments for the New Sons anthology edited by Nisi Shaw.
Oh yeah, definitely. Up for that.
Yeah, I co-signed that too. That's a great anthology.
Excellent.
Yeah, definitely up for that.
Yeah. Okay, so fiction as escape and fiction as comfort as tool. What do we think?
Agree. I think that for me, actually, that's pretty much it. Why I probably don't mind whether the tone is happy or sad or whatever. Fiction for me is escape, and when I do fiction, I'm primarily really attracted to characters and world building. So if you give me characterization and world building that sucks me in, even if it's not the greatest place in the world or the nicest people, I'm your girl every time. You know, so escapism is really big for me, and I love when I get into novellas or novelettes or books, and from the word go, you're in there and you lose yourself, and like literally when you're done, you wake up and you're sort of confused, like what just happened? I was somewhere else for a while. Has the world changed? Is Trump still president? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, carry on.
Okay, so sorry. I agree. I think fiction has to always be interesting, but it doesn't always have to make you inhabit a likable world. And I think fiction can be comforting even when the world doesn't seem that great to be in, because the best fiction has something that's constructive that will make you see the world in a better light. And it be like full of torture and misery and everything, but through every piece of fiction I've read, at least the ones that really work, there's always a bit of light amidst all the misery, and the light doesn't have to be like joy and ease. It can be a nugget of information that would make you live through reality a better place.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Joanne, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was to say I'm 100% with Rhonda on this one, that, you know, I'm reading because it's taking me away from everything that's happening, and that's where I want to be. That's where I want to live right now, is in books rather than the real world, because the real world is just this year is too hard. So, you know, to sort of lose yourself in a book for a couple of hours is just a welcome release.
I understand that completely. I've been finding the same thing with comics. I was a comics journalist and retailer for a while, and it's never quite left me. And I found myself coming back to the medium a lot this year because I could read 6 comics in an hour and feel like I've accomplished something. And at the same time, it only takes 6 to 7 minutes at a time. So 2020 can't get me.
Yes. We're hiding from the year.
Exactly. So one of my other questions is this. This is a year where escape has become very important, and specifically escape through fiction has become vital. What doesn't work for the panel? What areas of fiction or what styles of media have you just bounced off this year?
That's a tough one. I'm thinking probably for me, just for me, because it's been so hard to focus on things that require that you really pay like huge attention. Like if it doesn't grab you immediately and you have to really focus and see what the person is doing to get into it, I've bounced off a lot of hard sci-fi and incredibly intricate level fantasy that doesn't really have much happening as they lay the groundwork. I've bounced off of that because I run out of concentration space. Like I start thinking about something else. I mean, I've done this even when you're watching film now. Like this never happens, but I swear to God, I spend most of my time watching foreign film and foreign TVs now, like German, Korean especially. I love Korean drama, and because you have to read the subtitles, so if you're watching a show in French, you gotta pay attention. You know. As a result, I found some really great science fiction and fantasy from all of those countries on Netflix and also on the Viki Rakuten app. You know, but I swear to God, sometimes I would not be able to watch a show if there wasn't a subtitle demanding that I find out. Sometimes my mind wanders even then. I was literally watching The Man in the High Castle for the first time. I just found it out and I've been watching out the entire series and I've had to rewind a million times and it's in English. You know?
No, I'm finding that I'm bouncing off most new TV. Anything that I haven't already seen a million times is just it's not going in properly. So we've been rewatching DS9. We watched The Dark Crystal. We watched that earlier in the year, and we're watching that again, and it's going in better this time. But old stuff that is comfortable, things like the X-Files and things, I've just gone back to all this really old stuff that I've seen 1,000 times because I know it's comfortable and safe, and I know I don't need to concentrate because I've seen it. I don't need to, but I found myself, trying to watch things just completely zoning out.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing comfort watching. That's what I call it. A lot. Yeah, I think that's why Disney Plus is so popular right now. Comfort watching. I'm not from that group. I watched more new stuff because I kind of, if I know what's coming, my mind wanders. So with the new stuff, I'm forced to pay attention. But I find myself really attracted to stuff with heart, a lot of heart, and that focuses on relationships and community and, struggling against the odds and climbing above it. And anything that at least makes a decent attempt at diversity will get my eyeballs right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Talking about heart. Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Donald.
Yeah, I just remember because she was talking about heart. Did anybody watch The Mandalorian?
I started. Oh my God! I was so annoyed. I bought this this collection, and the second disc was like scratched, and I had to stop at episode 2, and I haven't been able to replace it up to now.
Oh, wow.
What did you think?
I didn't quite catch the name of the show. Could you repeat it?
Sorry, the show?
I didn't quite catch the title. Could you repeat it?
Oh, okay, Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian, of course.
The Mandalorian, yeah. Baby Yoda.
Oh, my God.
Of course, it's not Baby Yoda.
Of course, everything is about Baby Yoda.
The thing I really loved about that actually hits in episode 2, and it's the point where after he spent about 3 quarters look of the show is ground, so you can't see anything. But the look on his face somehow comes across, and it's just like, oh. And I have never related to a helmet more than that exact moment. It was so good.
That is what you call great acting, great using your body language to convey expressions so incredibly well. He does that so incredibly well. I've only been able to take in one episode, but you were never wondering what he was thinking. In a way, it kind of relates to the way that the Witcher talks to you with,
Come to think of it, I only actually just realized he wore a helmet. I always assumed the helmet was his face because I could actually always see expressions on the helmet. Like I could picture expressions. I could tell when he was annoyed. I could tell when he was angry. And I just sort of fitted the expressions to the helmet.
That is so true.
Yeah. So well done. I loved it.
So,
Sean.
the thing that I've been avoiding recently is books that raise a thread of like an important issue and then sweep it under the rug. And it can be like feel-good books or feel-good movies or feel-bad mediums. I am always like, if you want to raise something, then you have to tie it up. And in a world where like people are trying to tie things up and trying to like improve the world socially, it just feels like a disservice to like haphazardly raise something and then forget about it.
Yeah, or
absolutely.
Just like shows that kind of and properties that trying to shoehorn diversity in.
Yeah.
Like, it was never part of the world building, and you can tell when you do the scaffolding people. Man in the High Castle, I'm looking at you.
I haven't seen that, but I trust your opinion, so I will agree.
Thank you. I have actually been watching this show for the last week. I've sped through 3 seasons, and then in season 4 there's this abrupt shift that just smelled entirely of, oh wait, Black Panther made money. And it was like it's not that I'm ungrateful for your attempts, but good grief, they are so clearly attempts. And just want to let people know, while as a Black person, I am excited every time I see Black people on screen. I am also excited to see other cultures and other peoples. I'm still waiting for, authentic Native American representation or Middle Eastern representation or Hispanic representation of any kind, Asian representation that isn't oppressive or stereotypical. I mean, so when you look at stuff like that, it's kind of hard not to get slapped in the face with it all the time. But you kind of grow up making allowances for it, I guess, when you're Black. You're not going to be numero uno most of the time. So you kind of make allowances for it, and you appreciate it even if there's flaws. Like, I really enjoyed Old Guard. I loved that movie. I love Charlize Theron. She should get an award for being the best action star since Liam Neeson. But there are issues, yes, but for me, just seeing a Black woman front and center as the chosen one made up for so much.
Yeah, there was a lot to enjoy in Old Guard.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I think I might give it a go. But one thing that I'm having trouble with is watching anything apocalyptic, and it's not because we're living through what we're living through. It's because I'm sitting there going, nobody stockpiling toilet roll. What's wrong with these people?
Yeah, once you live in like a semi-apocalypse, you start to gain a better perspective of how living in it is.
I cannot believe that all these decades after the stand, that I am living through this and realizing that apparently people don't listen to doctors or scientists about viruses and illnesses, and apparently we have a world full of people who think that 200 plus countries will pretend to have an illness to own you.
Yeah.
I could not have. That's my problem with apocalyptic stories right now, is that they're not wacky enough. Like everything I grew up with gave us way too much credit.
Yes. People in the real world are apparently far more stupid than people in apocalyptic movies.
Yeah, who would have known? Who would have known?
That's a fair point.
Who knew?
You know,
It's just
talking
really
about
amazing. Donald, go. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I actually find post-apocalyptic comforting this period. You know, it's yeah. I had this article on Tor where I was listing 5 post-apocalyptic stories from last year. Now, the thing about post-apocalypsis is relatability. You know, the thing about stories, movies, books is they are kind of optimistic. You know, they are really tragic where everybody dies off and everything ends horribly. I mean, it's usually there's a struggle, then there's usually light at the end of the tunnel. You know, the characters manage to find a way out after all the struggle, of course, with acceptable casualties. So it sort of gives you this feeling that you can relate to the characters. You can see their struggle. You can see some of it reflected in your own lives. And eventually, when they find a way out through ingenuity or perseverance, or you know, you get to feel like you can also find a way out of this apocalypse if you know if you persevere. Or so yeah, I kind of find them comforting in that way. Like, you know, we can come out of this. But then again, characters in stories are usually smarter than the ones in real life. So, yes, that.
Definitely.
I agree with Donald so much. When this thing started, I rewatched Contagion, you know, and it was incredibly comforting because I was like, oh, look, they found a vaccine in a few months. That's amazing.
I think I read somewhere Contagion has been basically parked in the top 10 on Netflix for about 6 months for that exact reason, because people desperately need, like you've all been saying, that sense of comfort, that sense of we will come out the other side of it. It's been an interesting one, because one of the things it's taught me is how important the stuff that has gone away is. The announcement of the new Star Trek show, Strange New Worlds, actually hit me quite emotionally, because I was like, oh, yeah, the spaceships and people who are kind and solve problems, and problems that finish in 45 minutes, and then the end credits happen. I'm very ready for that, thank you. Could I have that now, you know?
Yeah, I've been rewatching DS9 too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, there's this thing that happens in fiction where something happens and you're like, that's so ridiculous. That's not possible. That can't happen. No one would actually be that stupid. And then it happens in real life, boom, and you're like, what? So yeah, I guess fiction is realer than real life.
I'm hung up on the fact that on the whole apocalyptic fiction that moves on that gets written from here on out is going to have to be stupider, or people are going to have you know. We had a question about 10 minutes back about, is there anything coming out this year that the panelists are really looking forward to?
Okay.
Yes.
Coming out or already out?
We'll do already out after this, but coming out first.
Okay.
In terms of television, I have to say I'm waiting for the new season of The Expanse with bated breath.
Mm-hmm.
I've already read it, but I'm really looking forward to rereading Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark, which is a novella that's coming out for Tor.com.
Yeah.
It's really something, and I could read it again and again and never get tired of it. It's about how D.W. Griffith, who created the film Birth of a Nation, weaponized the film to create demonic KKK members. It's amazing. And I can't wait to buy a physical copy.
That sounds. And who's that from?
P. Jelly Clark.
PJ
It's a
Clark.
talk.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
one of my favorites. And also Trinidadian ancestry.
Yay!
I don't know if it's this year, but there's supposed to be a televised version of Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pembroke, and I'm really looking forward to that. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do with that and how it works, because that's been one of my lockdown reads. I found it in my local bookshop for £1, and I was like, I'm having that. And yeah, that properly took me away from everything. So I'd really like to see how that comes out on TV. I'm not sure what service it's going to be on.
I think I heard Netflix.
Oh, I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, because Netflix is the one I've got.
Donald?
Yeah, Umbrella Academy. We're looking forward to that. Does anybody know if it's out? I'm not sure. Umbrella Academy, season 2.
Cool.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Umbrella Academy.
Oh,
Umbrella
yeah.
Academy.
Yeah. I actually did like the first season. I mean, it had some issues with it, but it was compelling. And I do plan to watch season 2 for sure.
It just looks like enormous fun.
The second season looks like even more fun than the first season, which was kind of dark and a little disturbing sometimes. You know, but dark and disturbing, I'm okay with that. It depends on the tone. It depends on what you're ultimately getting at. And what I really love is families and communities. So it kind of hits me right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to, I think they're bringing out either a series or a mini series about Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, I think. And
really?
I think I read that. And I'm so excited for that. It will be so cool finally to see that.
I think the script is being written by Nadia Okorafor.
Yes, that's how I found out about it.
Oh, okay.
And definitely Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Yes.
Which is just
God.
in the comments. Yeah. Excellent.
It has just come out. Please God, yes.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too.
Pre-Columbian, Aztec, Mayan, like I grew up with this stuff in school, and Tobias Buckell did the same thing with his novels, his debut novels. Oh God, I forget the name. I think it's Zenowell. But yeah, anything like that gets me.
Excellent. And I'm seeing a couple of mentions of 13 Stories from Jonathan Sims in the comments as well, which is one I'm really looking forward to. It's their debut novel from a horror podcaster. And it's, as I understand it, it is a different story for every floor of the skyscraper the main character lives in. And I'm an absolute mark for that kind of thing. Along similar lines, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is the 5th volume in one of those series of books that kind of sneaks out. It's called 6 Stories by Matt Wesolowski, and it is a podcast as a book. And each volume examines in the world of the books an unsolved crime. And each chapter is an episode of the podcast, and each chapter is a different perspective on the crime. And then once that's done, the whole thing kind of moves on. And it is right on the edge between crime and horror. And I am waiting for someone to sweep up the TV rights for this, because when they do, it will look like nothing else. It's really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like a sort of Rashomon technique. Yeah, I love that. I love it.
So that's stuff that's coming out. What about stuff that's out now?
One book that isn't my favorite, but that I can't stop thinking about, is Burn by Patrick Ness, which is like, it has dragons, it has assassins, and it has many other things that I can't say because it's a spoiler, but it throws like everything against the wall, and I just respect its sheer ambition. It only like manages to hit things out of the park 50% of the time, but for something that's like 80,000 words long, I can't fault a book for cramming like 5 books worth of story into a single young adult novel.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Donald, you had something.
Okay, yeah, there's 9 Bar Blues by Sherry Reddy Thomas. You guys know her. Sherry Reddy Thomas, 9 Bar Blues. She did the Dark Matter anthologies, Dark Matter 1 and 2. Yeah, that's just came out. There's Claude Dead by Nikhil Singh. Then there's this novella, A Fledgling Abiba by Dilmandila. Yeah, that's 3 works that are currently out. Sorry, I was going to mention among the works that we're expecting, Suyi Davis Okumboa. He has this series, The Nameless Republic, coming out. Yeah. And I think, yeah.
Can you just repeat that last one? I'm really sorry, I didn't quite get it.
Yeah, the Nameless Republic by Suyi Davis Okumboa. Yeah, it's forthcoming next year. Then I think, but I'm not sure, Tochi Oyebuchi. I think there's a second book to his War Girls coming out, but I'm not quite sure. So yeah, that's
cool. Very cool. Who else?
I was thinking about The Fires of Vengeance. I think it's the sequel to Evan Winter's Rage of Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's coming out. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, Rage of Dragons is fantastic. Sean?
This is for books that are out now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I already said Burned by Patrick Ness, but if I were to pick another one, it'd probably be Provenance by Max Berry, which is a space opera that doesn't follow any of the space opera tropes. Like, it's all about determinism and how we're, like, basically directed to do things that are out of our control, while usually space operas are about huge expansive spaces where the sky's the limit. And I was just really impressed how Max Berry managed to break the formula of space operas and like destroy its unending adventurism and still make it interesting.
That sounds great. Joanne?
Yeah, there've been a couple this year that have really, sort of had me. So Beneath the Rising by Premium Mohammed, which I think came out February, which is kind of, she takes like Lovecraftian tropes and then kind of ties a knot in them and then turns them into a Clockwork Beetle and pushes them down a flight of stairs. She's brilliant. Yes, fabulous book. I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't normally like Lovecraftian stuff like that, but I thought that the way she did it was so clever and so smart and endearing that I loved it. And the other one came out a few weeks ago, was Threading the Labyrinth by Tiffany Angus, which is it's a time-traveling magic garden.
Sold.
Yes. And that one, I read that earlier in the year, and I've just bought the paperback. I found that tremendously comforting. So again, it's the comfort thing is nice, but it was just a lovely, lovely story.
And some people are mentioning Mexican Gothic, which I am reading right now, and I can't give my final opinion on that, but I think it's a phenomenal novel so far. So I'd also echo that one.
Brilliant. And also, That So Poe has just popped up in the comments and recommended Sal and Gabby Fix the Universe by Carlos Hernandez. I read that a couple of weeks ago, and it is joyous. The first page includes one character introducing themselves as a calamity physicist, and it just builds from there. There is an artificially intelligent toilet who is a vital character and a useful counsel to several characters. And it does a really, really fun, compassionate kind of approach to some really interesting stuff. We also have a request for a list of all these mentioned books as stuff has been coming up. So, panelists, if you could possibly, when we wrap up, note down as many books as you can remember and send them to me. What we'll do is put up a curated list on Twitter, so we should be able to capture most of these for you. The one I have from stuff which is out, I'm cheating and have visual aids, is Savage Legion by Matt Wallace, who is a podcaster and has just stepped across into epic fantasy after a very, very weird and very good 7 novella series about urban fantasy catering, which is somehow even better than that suggests. And Savage Legion is basically a full frontal assault on epic fantasy. It takes on everything that you would expect and does it completely differently and explores it from a political and a moral point of view. And it is stupendously good. It's one of the best things I've read in a long time. Likewise, Beneath the Rising, which was actually the other book, which I was going to grab from the shelf. So thank you for getting ahead of me.
I can't reach it. It's up there somewhere.
So we have covered stuff that's out that's good. We've covered stuff which is coming out, which we're looking forward to. And we've circled around an awful lot the concept of comfort viewing and how that has perhaps maybe changed a little, or comfort reading, and how that's perhaps changed a little bit across the course of this horrible year to date. One of the things I found, which again speaks to a couple of slightly earlier topics, is I'm able to watch 3 or 4 90-minute horror movies on Netflix a day at the moment, because firstly it's daytime, secondly there's never any lighting, so I can't see what is eating people, and thirdly I'm not the one being eaten. So I'm introduced to these people, they wander along and get horribly killed, and then the movie finishes and they have a sandwich, and that's weirdly comforting in this terrible year, and I don't know why, but on some level it just is. I was wondering whether anyone has had kind of comfort media experiences where you've returned to them and it hasn't worked, and if so, I'm curious as to why you think that is.
Yeah, I think I did. I think I tried to read, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to mention Taylor Swift's new album not hitting as much as they used to. Yeah, Miss Swifty, that's probably something I shouldn't say in public. So yeah, I'm not sure if that counts though. So, yeah, don't mind me, go ahead.
The movies that I've watched, this is like a dumb reason to not have a recomfort from a media experience, but I just feel so it feels so otherworldly to see people walk around outside in public without masks or without any protocols. It's just it feels like an alternate universe, and I feel kind of jealous of that universe, and I wish I could return to it. So anything with normality in it is something that I find a little off-putting these days.
I read an article a couple of months ago about authors who have had to modify their books as a result of the pandemic, and how suddenly, as one particular crime author said, most of the books in the pub, that's a problem right now, and how you have to work around it and change things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
we're going to have to make a choice as creators, I think. Depending on what you work in, if you work in contemporary literature, if you work in, romance or anything really that's supposed to reflect the real world, you're going to have to make a choice with whether you're going to stick with fiction, namely everything's the same as it was, or if we're going to incorporate that into our work going forward, because we have no idea how long we're going to be in this position of having to live differently. I mean, I look back over the pandemics of the past, and it's clear that 2 years, 3 years, everybody went back to living however, because we either, the virus was either under control or it moved on, or we found a vaccine. But when you think about it, that's going to be really tough for people who have to talk about viruses and pandemics and relationships and community now, and who have their books based in that sort of immediacy. So I guess I don't mind either choice. I mean, if whatever works for you, but I do sort of judge you if you're giving me today and there's no social distancing. I have no idea how we're going to frame romance going forward. I mean, it's pretty obvious you're going to have to date over Zoom. Beyond that.
This same article mentioned how there's already a small cottage industry in pandemic and lockdown crime novels. There are an awful lot of, I have witnessed someone be murdered over Zoom, and for various complicated reasons, I cannot go to the police, books at various stages of production right now, for a start. And it's been interesting as well. to look at some of the stuff that's been produced this year in direct reaction to it. There's a subgenre of horror movie I really like, which is called screen life, which is basically what we're doing right now, where the entire movie happens on the screen and horrible things happen to everyone in the film on the screen. This won't happen to us, it's fine. But I find it really interesting how that kind of thing has been adapted by by kind of current media creators. In particular, there is a stunningly good BBC sitcom called Staged, which is 6 15-minute episodes of David Tennant and Michael Sheen being incompetent at one another over Zoom. And it's David Tennant and Michael Sheen playing each other in their houses, because that was where the only place they could be when they filmed it. And I think maybe that's because we're starting to come up on time a little bit. I think that's maybe my kind of final question for the panel. What do you think this time period is going to bring forth into the creative media? What do you think we're going to see as trends across the next year or so? And how do you think that's going to interact with the need for comfort? Which is a massive question, I know, especially in 9 minutes. So I'm sorry.
I think there's going to be a flurry of people writing pandemic fiction, and most of it is going to be terrible. And yeah, that's what I'm anticipating next time we do Open Subs is lots and lots of pandemic fiction, which will be very, very bad. And hopefully some people go, no, I just want to write something completely different, and maybe some new and interesting creativity will come out of it. I don't know how people are managing to write. I'm struggling to write because I'm struggling to concentrate. So I'm hoping that some people have unlocked their creativity while they've been in lockdown, but I know a lot of people are massively struggling. So, I don't know whether we'll get, fewer books, or whether we'll just get a lot of, bad pandemic books, or what I'd like to see is like a lot of alternative realities, because I'd like an alternative from this.
That's fair.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but I foresee a trend of publishers pretty much sticking with proven writers already. Lots of sequels, and from those writers who can produce them, lots of work getting a second, a second installment or whatever, and less and less room for debut authors and news stories in the mainstream area, because when you have big corporations that own everything, like Disney and 20th Century Fox or whatever, when you have people that own everything, they want to make sure that they're going to make money. And right now, the best way to do that is comfort watching. There are a lot of people who are looking for comfort reads and comfort watches. So yeah, I think we're going to end up with some really bad pandemic fiction, maybe, but I'm not so sure that it will get picked up that often. I really see people looking to promote more proven authors, and I kind of feel for everyone who has new novels coming out this year and next year. I don't know if they'll actually put the effort into the marketing that some of those novels deserve.
So yeah, I think pandemic fiction is definitely something that will arise a lot more. But I also think that this situation has shed a spotlight on the malleability of humanity and their eagerness to risk their lives when it facilitates a political belief that they believe in. So I think in terms of like the human aspect of how stories are told, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more willful stupidity and bipartisanship, and like how especially one side in particular, which I will not name, is willing to risk their lives in the name of their beliefs, even when it defies logic.
Yes, that makes a ton of sense, and speaks to Donald's excellent point from earlier about fiction which inspires and embodies hope.
Yeah, no challenging foundational beliefs.
I think it's sad, but I think a lot of small presses will go to the wall because people are just struggling so hard to keep their jobs and make money that having, if being a publisher is not your main job, it's going to be really, really hard, which is really sad because I think that we're going to be missing out on a lot of really good writing just because, like you said, the big publishers will stick with what they already know and their big sellers, and the small presses will be struggling financially. So that's kind of depressing. Sorry, I didn't bum everybody out there.
I
Okay.
have a glimmer of hope there. And one of the other hats I wear is co-running the podcast network. And the thing which we've seen and which has been reported up and down the industry is that donations are flat. They're not going up, but they're not going down. So there seems to be a willingness at the moment for a lot of content creators, and I kind of hate that phrase, but in a lot of kind of media, people are quite prepared to throw money at it because this is what we all have to do to get by right now. So we've got to make sure it's still there. So I'm hopeful that won't quite come to pass.
Yeah, maybe this is just the trend, but I found, especially in June when Black Lives Matter really pushed forward, Aya and other Black artists did get a little more recognition, and I do not know if that's going to be a long-lasting thing, but at least now things are in a better place for writers of color. So I mean, that's some.
Is that really true?
Definitely.
Yeah, it was kind of heartening to see how many people, during that were promoting Black businesses and Black writers and Black artists, and there was a big wave of these are good people, buy their stuff.
Yeah, and I hope it's not like a trend for sure. I hope it's a long-lasting thing.
That was.
It has to be
say
consistent.
something?
Donald.
I hesitate to agree. I feel like, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I feel like some of this so-called support is window dressing, and it really doesn't reach deep. It really doesn't reach very far. I mean, okay, we're talking about there's supposed to be support for blackness, minorities, but there was a lot of uproar when American Death came out. Yeah, there was a whole uproar about the bad portrayals, the stereotypes, but despite that, it's still sitting comfortably on a lot of bestseller lists, right?
Yeah, it did.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, and if you were to really look at it, okay, the book was, it was a bad take, at the Mexican story, yeah. It's still selling comfortably more than stories by Mexicans that have more accurate portrayals, like Mexican Gothic, for example, which is by a Mexican, which even has Mexican in the title. So I don't know. I hesitate to to accept that it's all going to be all breeze and everything good.
Yeah, Donald,
but that's just me.
I agree with you completely. A lot of course, no names or anything, but a lot of the calls that we've had from agents, from publishers, submit your work and so on. First off, I think it's important to remember that everyone is under pressure right now, and it's really difficult as a marginalized person of any kind to create work. So thinking that I'll have something ready for you in the next few weeks that I can just submit to you is kind of, short-term thinking, and we'd like to see those calls keep going. And also to question, basically piggybacking off of your point and what I was saying about the fact that the mainstream likes mainstream. These books continue to be a success because they put the marketing dollars and the recognition behind these stories. And the authentic stories or the marginalized persons or persons of color do not get the marketing budget, do not get the hype machine, and I think one of the really important things that readers can do outside of these machines that help a lot is to review the stuff that you love on every platform that it's on, and to like these things and to talk about these things and to please buy these things and recommend these things, because you would not believe that the amount of reviews you get on Amazon actually determines how much and what kind of marketing you can
Visibility.
access, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of persons don't have that that wherewithal, and Black persons, persons of colors, persons of color, marginalized persons often are at the absolute bottom of that marketing pile, that hype machine. And we could use the pushback and the help from readers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to add to what you were saying, you're talking about the establishment, about budgeting, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it's actually a work for readers, like you said.
Yes.
So maybe appealing to readers to be more, you know, if I think that readers tend to be a bit laid back, it's easier for them to reach out to works from authors that they are more familiar with, the more established names, the names that are everywhere. So it would be really helpful if they stopped trying to be spoon fed, if they actually try to go out there and search and look for what's out there that's authentic from upcoming voices, you know. Where anyway, yeah, that's
Definitely, definitely. I agree with that. I think we could really, readers could really help by not just accepting their favorite tropes and their favorite authors every single time, and really
yeah,
look for something different. And also in the industry, could we, although there's great value to every story, there are certain kinds of stories about cultures and people that are acceptable, and I think that we should allow people of color, we should allow marginalized persons to tell all sorts of stories and not immediately assume, oh, there's no audience for this kind of story from someone like you. Why don't you tell us about yourself? Why don't you tell us about your culture? Why don't you tell us about your history? You know, people have things to say beyond that.
yeah.
Well,
I would like to recommend, yeah, I would like to
that,
recommend is a medium, yeah. Kickstarter. There's a lot of awesome works by Black authors being kickstarted. There's a lot of great works, comics, books, novellas being
mhm.
kickstarted. Yeah, so yeah, because a lot of these authors might not have the mediums to come out with big publishers, so they eventually end up putting out their works by themselves through crowdfunding. So it would be really helpful to check out which works are being kickstarted and try and see if you can support, yeah, the promising ones.
I agree completely, and I think there's the interesting thing about the discussion we've had across the last hour is I wonder whether all this what this all boils down to is almost an opportunity, and maybe perhaps even an obligation. We are all having to interact with culture in a very different way than we were in February. Remember February? I almost do now.
It was
There is
84
an
years.
opportunity now to try different authors, different voices. And I would argue there's also an obligation to do that because, especially in the time of massive social and political upheaval which we're currently living through, there is a chance to make things better and make things better, as has been pointed out, permanently rather than for the space of the lifetime of a Twitter hashtag. And I am sincerely hopeful that if enough people put the work in, and the work has to be done by everybody, that's going to happen. We're going to see focus on authors who have previously been overlooked. We're going to see a change in approach and a change in inclusiveness, for want of a better word. And I'm very conscious of people's time, and I'm wondering whether this is perhaps a good point to, if possible, make a recommendation for an author from one of the groups that has traditionally been completely unfairly marginalized, as an opportunity for our viewers to try something new and hopefully start down a very different path into some amazing
Yeah.
stories, which deserve new eyes on them.
Yeah, for sure. A few authors really quickly from me. Tonya Liebert is a sci-fi author from Canada.
Tonya Liebert,
That's really
yeah.
great. Good. Yes, Liebert. Thank you. that does really good work. Also, Case and Calendar, they're amazing. And I would also like to draw attention to Arula Ratnaka, who had her first work published in Clarksville last year and should have something else coming from them that's brilliant very shortly. Yeah, I think that's it for me for now. There's lots of other people, and I'm so sorry I forgot.
Okay.
Donald?
Okay. I'll go with Nikhil Singh, Dil Mandela, Tochi is pretty known. Suyi Davis Okungbowa, Milton Davis, Balogun Ojetade. Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, before I forget, Brandon O'Brien from Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh yeah,
Brandon's the best. Love Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay, and Thaddeus House.
Excellent.
So I'll recommend some short fiction authors. So Kathleen Kayembe, who has a great novelette in Nightmare Magazine. Ian Maneshwar, I might have butchered that last name, but he has great short fiction in Anathema Magazine and Strange Horizons Magazine. And while they have published a lot of novels, they've written a lot of short fiction too. So Nalo Hopkinson is another one who I'd recommend.
Fantastic.
Okay,
and Joanne?
I'll just add, there's this girl, Zin Rocklin. She has a novelette on tour, a horror novelette. Yeah.
Cool. On the list, Joanne?
Yeah, obviously, Premi Mohammed, we mentioned earlier, it's Beneath the Rising. Anything
Great
by
book.
Priya Sharma, who is an astonishing writer.
Yeah.
Tade Thompson, I just read Rosewater. I thought that was excellent. Yeah, and Stephanie Salter, who wrote the Gem Science trilogy, which is kind of near future SF. That was really, really good.
Brilliant. And I'm going to round things off with a podcast recommendation. Nightlight is, by some distance, one of the best horror podcasts on the planet. It's Black authors, Black narrators, and one of Tonya is just a stunningly good podcast host. That's about half of my day job. And Tonya is the kind of podcast host I want to be when I grow up. She does amazing work. And it's one of those shows where every single episode you hear is fantastic. So that is hopefully a huge raft of recommendations for you to try some amazing fiction which deserves far more eyes on it, and which is going to get you through the rest of this hopefully fractionally less horrible year with some really fun and diverting and important and necessary stories for you. I would like to thank my incredible panel who have been a font of knowledge and enthusiasm in exactly the way that I desperately hoped they would be. Thank you, Donald, Joanne, Rhonda, Sean. Thank you to Jade for moderating. And I hope you enjoyed listening and watching. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Have a
right,
great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah. Bye.